Welcome back, guys, and undefeated no more. We have conquered the Baltimore Ravens. Before we get started, remember to like, comment, subscribe, turn those notifications down below, and let's get straight into talking about what happened in that last game. After that game, which was so close the week prior, this one got even closer as we raised the stakes once more, and at the end of it all, it was only a single point that separated us as we took the W 29-28. This was a back and forth, up and down battle, and we knew it would be with plays like this. As on our first drive, it was our veteran tight end, Zach Ertz, who made his mark in this big-time matchup, starting the scoring on the day by breaking off a defender at the point of the catch and diving in to get the first touchdown of the day. But to start this game, the true story was how we did a great job of locking down this Baltimore offense, and that all started with the great work in the trenches. Bryce Huff. He was locking down the run game all day, finishing with 5 tackles for loss, and he also found his way in on the pass to join Farrell in dropping Jackson for the sack. But the true leader of our pass rush today was Dennis Gardick. He flew in off the left side of the line twice on the day to get to Jackson and send him down in huge moments before he could take off. When Lamar did get out of the pocket, we also made him pay for getting greedy out there, as early in the third, when it happened, it was Isaiah Simmons to jar the ball loose and force the fumble for us to use to take back over. And the former Seahawk LJ Collier also made a tremendous play as he worked off a double team, then another blocker, and found his way home for the sack as well. But we could not contain this dynamic offense for long, because the magic of Lamar would soon catch up to us as he not only threw for over 280 yards, but he was also their leading rusher with over 60 on the ground. One of his favorite targets on the day was the 9th-year receiver, Nelson Aguilar. He continued to be there to make the big plays all day long, including a vital 2-point conversion to move the margin to a 7-point difference. But by far his number one target on the day was his tight end, Mark Andrews. He had by far his best game of the year as he brought in 10 for $178. Capped off by this massive play-action bomb where he took it 76 yards for the touchdown. But it was not just Ertz and Andrews making plays from the tight end position, as our own Trey McBride also had a solid day, bringing in 5 for 60 and finding his way inside the end zone as well. But besides that, Colt McCoy did not have a very good day throwing the ball. The Baltimore defense kept him under 180 through the air, and they forced him to throw 2 interceptions as well. Now, this defensive show was mainly driven by their killer linebacker duo in the middle, starting with their all-pro Roquan Smith. He seemed to be everywhere, stepping up whenever they needed a play, just like he did early in the second quarter as he played perfect coverage, coming away with the first McCoy interception and putting his team in great field position. And when Roquan wasn't there, it was their 24-year-old Patrick Queen who was making the plays. He got in on the tackle 7 times with 2 going for a loss. But one of the biggest plays this defense made all day was the second McCoy interception, which was brought in by Marlon Humphrey. He played it beautifully, balancing his position with the safety and reading the comeback route perfectly as he finished with the takeaway. And this one was important as it would lead to the eventual Lamar rushing score to put Baltimore back on top in the third. Before we move into the final stretch of this game, it is important to note that the score sat where it was due to one of their most reliable guys, their kicker, Justin Tucker, missing a 55-yard field goal in which he had plenty of leg but just could not put it on target. Now, with the Ravens up by 7, it was our own James Conner who punched it in on a 4th and goal from the 1 to tie us back up at 21 all and shift all the pressure back towards Baltimore. They then responded by calling towards their massive free agent signing, Kareem Hunt, as after a long, methodical drive that took much of the final quarter with it, and they gave it to their running back who took it in himself to put them back up by 7 once more. And in this huge matchup, after a huge final drive, who else would we call to but the man having his revenge game against his former team, Hollywood Brown. After a mostly quiet day, he came away with one of the biggest catches of the day to tie it up, or so many of us thought. as with the massive role we were both on, we decided to end it there. We handed it off to James Conner on the 2-point try, and he found his way in, putting us up by 1 with 22 seconds left, and we would hold that lead for the rest of the game. After we then advanced the week, it was time to go back to the negotiation table for contract extensions, and we of course started once more with Hollywood Brown. He continues to be amazing for us, getting the last big touchdown we needed to upset Baltimore. So we decided to offer him a 5-year deal worth $90 million, averaging $10 million a year in salary. And he said this is exactly the offer he was hoping to get, and that next season will be great, and that is a massive deal completed for us. We lock up our superstar receiver for his entire prime, and that could very much match up with our championship timeline. After the big win, we return to a much tougher deal, and that one is regarding Isaiah Simmons. We adjusted our numbers, looking to align with his expectations a bit more. We offered him a 3-year deal worth $25.2 million, averaging $4.2 million a year in salary, and he once again disagreed, saying this was unacceptable, even considering that he wants to keep playing here. So after going 1 for 2, we decided to try and end on a high note, and return to negotiations with Clelin Ferrell. He's had such a great year, and since we think he can grow a lot in the next few seasons, along with his interest in returning, we offered him a 3-year deal worth $18.6 million, averaging $2.8 million a year in salary, and he said we have a deal. He is excited to sign such a great offer and stay with the team, and what a preseason pickup he has turned out to be. Now, we are just about halfway through the year, and it's a great time to take a look at our division. But before we get there, a huge note is that with our massive win this week, we ended Baltimore's undefeated start to the year, and there are no longer any undefeated teams across the league. But now, as we move over to the NFC West, I think to most people's surprise, we find ourselves leading the division at 6-2. While the Seahawks slightly edge out the Niners for second place due to a bye week as they both have 5 wins, and at the bottom of the division is the 3-5 Rams. So, let's take a moment to check out how our division mates got here. Starting with Seattle, we already know about their massive 4-0 start to the year, but after they had their Week 5 bye, they returned to take a blowout loss from Cincinnati, then obviously to us, but they are now coming off a bounce-back win against a Cleveland team that is severely underperforming expectations with just 1 win thus far. Next up is San Francisco. We know about the 2-up, 2-down start we hope contribute to, but they followed up their loss to us with another in a big-time NFC battle against Dallas. After that, though, they have gotten themselves back to winning ways, getting 3 straight against Cleveland, Minnesota, and Cincy. And lastly, we can discuss LA. We know about most of their year already as we covered their year when we faced them in Week 6. But after the loss we gave them, they attempted to bounce back as they picked up a win against Pittsburgh, but they ate another loss from Dallas as they just cannot get it going. I also wanted to take a look at the yearly award races thus far, but I had to mention that Von Miller is currently sitting at 17 sacks through only 8 weeks, and he has a very solid chance at the record this year. We start by looking at the MVP race. We don't have anyone in the running, but it's none other than Lamar Jackson at the top of the list, and that may make our victory even more impressive. In the Coach of the Year race, Doug Peterson with the Jacksonville Jaguars is leading the way, but down at number 5, we find our own coach on the list, so that is exciting. Moving to the NFC awards, starting with Offensive Player of the Year, Jalen Hurts leads the way with no Cardinals on the list. For Defensive Player of the Year, the leader thus far is our man, Bryce Huff, and he has proven to be the right decision on that trade every single week. Offensive Rookie of the Year is being led by the Falcons' first-round pick, Bijan Robinson, but right behind him at number 2 is our man, Michael Wilson, and that is huge. For Defensive Rookie of the Year, our third-round corner is at the top of the list, and just down at number 3, we have B.J. Ojulari there as well. Best QB is being led again by Hurts, and McCoy sneaks his way in at 9. The best running back is currently looking like Ezekiel Elliott, who has found his new home in Detroit, but our own James Conner sneaks in at 8. Best wide receiver is being led by Brandon Ayuk, and our man Hollywood Brown is in at 9. Best O-line is being led by Zach Martin, but an exciting race for us as we have our first round pick, Paris Johnson, sitting at 4, and both Josh Jones and Elijah Wilkinson sitting at 7 and 8 respectively. Once again, best D-line is being led by Bryce Huff, and our own Clelin Ferrell finds his way in at number 8. The best linebacker is looking like Shaq Thompson, with BJ's brother Azeez Ojulari right behind him. The race for best DB is being led by Xavier Rhodes, which is incredible considering he was basically just brought in to help mentor. But we also have Budda Baker and Isaiah Simmons in at 8 and 10 respectively. And the best kicker is Jake Elliott, with our own Matt Prater sitting at 9. And now is the time we can take a look at the news headlines from around the league for this week. It looks like we are getting more details on the Rams' loss to the Cowboys as their secondary picked off Stafford 3 times. We know more than anybody how dominant that secondary can truly be. But they weren't even the worst on the week, as the Titans made a Desmond Ridder experience a living nightmare as they intercepted him 4 times this week. But the game of the week upcoming is one of the greatest rivalries in football, as it is the Dallas Cowboys traveling to Philadelphia to take on the Eagles. But now it is the time for us to look forward to our own upcoming game, as we will be traveling to Cleveland to take on the Browns. They are a team with some interesting guys scattered across the roster, but they have been having an awful year thus far, with just 1 win over the first 8 weeks. And we already heard about their loss last week to the Seahawks. So let's instead talk about some of those interesting guys we have to prepare for. We start with one of the best running backs in the NFL, Nick Chubb. He has dominated ever since he entered the league in 2018, rushing for over 1,000 yards in 4 out of his first 5 years, only missing the mark in his rookie year by a mere 4 yards. And he's off to a great start this year as well, as he's averaging 5.5 yards a carry thus far. And their other star playmaker on offense is Amari Cooper. He has flown under the radar for so many years, as he has got it done in Oakland, then again in Dallas, and he's doing it once more here in Cleveland. But he is coming off a tough game a week ago where he didn't have a single catch the entire day. Their best guy on defense is, of course, Myles Garrett. He is one of the most dominant edge rushers in this league, coming off back-to-back 16-sack seasons, and he would love to get himself closer to that marker this year by putting McCoy down a few times this week. Their secondary is led by their 26-year-old corner, Denzel Ward. He is the guy who steps up against the opposing team's number 1 receiver, and he tends to lock them down as well. And the reason we did not mention Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, one of the most promising young linebackers in the league, is because he is currently on the injury report with a broken hand, and he will not be available for this game. Now that we know who we're going up against, it's time for us to set our game plan for this upcoming matchup. Starting on defense. This pass game is very solid, but we know the key is stopping Nick Chubb. So, we are going to try to defend the outside run, keeping him contained, and hopefully forcing him to some short runs. Now on offense. We know they have defensive studs up front with Garrett and on the back end with Ward, but with the absence of JOK, we are going to focus on throwing the medium pass. Let's take advantage of their misfortune and get the upper hand against their weak spot. Before we set our goals for the week, we got a text from our defensive coordinator, John Grant, and he said he wants us to keep an eye on Bryce Huff. He was a big part of our win last week, and although he's not totally sold on him just yet, if he has a repeat performance this week against the Browns, he may turn out to be a very, very special player. And if he's not sure about Huff already, we may very well need to be looking for a new defensive coordinator in the offseason, but we decided his goal for the week would be to hold the Browns to under 75 rushing yards and 1 rushing touchdown, or to get him 2+ interceptions, forced fumbles, tackles for loss, or sacks. We then attended our weekly press conference, and one reporter said, "Coach, the Browns are struggling, but sometimes a team can trip up unexpectedly by looking ahead to the next game." And he asked if there is any fear this is a trap game. And we answered saying, "Not at all. This is the NFL and everybody is a threat. We stress that week in and week out. The second you overlook an opponent is the second you make headlines for getting upset." And as a result of the poor season they've had thus far, every Browns player will have -5 break tackle, play rec, and tackling for this game. And it was then we were ready to set our goals for this game. Following Huff's goal, we want to hold them under 200 yards on the day. Over the course of Cleveland's season, they've had games where it was a shootout, they've had games where it was a defensive clash, and let's hope this is one of the weeks where this offense is stalled. After that, we want to get over 350 offensive yards. We were able to step up to the challenge last week against the dominant Baltimore defense, and we're hoping to do it once more against yet another AFC North squad. Moving back to our defense, we want to hold Cleveland to 14 points. Following our defensive yards goal, we want to get to them early before this offense can get rolling. And lastly, we want to get 2 or more passing touchdowns. We said we are going to try and attack the middle of the field with the pass, and hopefully that ends up getting us into the end zone a few times. We then finished up our training for the week, and there were no significant injuries on our end to speak of, but the one guy we saw some nice growth out of was Trey McBride. He has been a great option this year, making key grabs to keep us moving on offense, and he improved in his awareness, catching in traffic, medium and deep route running, power run blocking, and his speed. And the last thing for us to discuss on the day, BJ Ojulari has been revealed to have star development. Again, much like our first round pick of the year, Paris Johnson, not a crazy development trait, but we love to see that it's solidified what his development trait is, and we can continue to grow from that. And with that, we have discussed everything we needed to, and we are set and ready for our next matchup. If you guys enjoyed, remember to like, comment, subscribe, turn on those notifications down below, and I will see you all next time as we head into Cleveland to take on the Browns.